Hey pilots, this is Craig M with Paraglider Service USA, and today we're going to go over trim tuning and how we do it over here at Paraglider Service USA. What I really do, it's called B-row pitch balancing. And that's what I focus on, and it automatically takes care of the line lengths to be within the factory tolerances at very low levels. And so let's go over that right now. And so over here, if you can see my cursor, there's a picture of the quick links for half the glider, because all we need to do is focus on one half or the other, because as we know, here's the right half of the glider is layout of the lines is identical on the left side. And so with that in mind, let's look. Here's the center of the wing. See my cursor spanning over here on the far left, and that's where everything starts from, and then it works towards the wingtip. And so we divide this half of this wing into thirds. Everything I have yellow here for the A row, which this is the leading edge, and this is the trailing edge, and here's the wingtip. Everything starting from the leading edge, meaning the A row at the top, and then the B row, and then the C row, and then the D row, and then the brakes, is starting or broken down. This whole half of the wing is broken down into thirds. The yellow are the line groups 1 for all 4 of the rows. So this line groups that are closest to the center line are line group 1. Those down the middle of the wing are considered line group 2, regardless of the row. And same thing over here near the wingtip is line group 3. And the last group is line group 4, which is the stabilo. So we're not going to count that. We're only going to look at what we do for pitch balancing is going to be for the 3 line groups for all 3 rows. So I have all line groups 1 highlighted in yellow, all line groups 2 is highlighted in blue, and line groups 3 are highlighted in green. And I do the same thing on my chart. So everything in yellow is going to be affiliated with line group 1, whether it's the mullion loops or the chart with the results. And line group 2 is going to be in blue, line group 3 is in green, and the stabilos is orange. And so that's what we need to focus on in order to get everything really sweet and perfect. And so if you look at your links here, this is where our adjustments occur. We do our mullion loops for the most part here. Of course, there's occasional rare times where I have to make adjustments in the upper cascades, where I have to do line core inserts or loops at the line-to-line connections, but those are rare cases. And or sometimes I have to replace the line if it's so out of whack, because you know, when I have too much of a loop or too much of an insert, I always do a smaller diameter, a couple sizes down, so that I'm not having to increase the thickness of the line too much. Where there's a transition is more drastic, because that's where the line is likely to break. So sometimes I'll just replace the line in those instances, and sometimes we'll replace a main line if it's so far out. So sometimes the glider will have just the stabilos are shorter than everything, and in order to get the glider balanced, we have to shorten all the loops down to get in balance with the stabilos or the A3, which is the big ears. And that's just a lot of adjustments that are unnecessary when all you have to do is replace the main line on the big ears or the stabilo, and that way there's less adjustments elsewhere. But aside from that, let's get back to our B-row pitch balancing and what's involved in that. And so if you look here at your links here on your mullions, whether they're soft links or metal links, so never mind. I like to change all soft links to metal links because of the diameter differences. The diameter on the metal links are smaller, so that when I make adjustments, they're smaller adjustments. Whereas the soft links, it's, you know, my radius of my loops, or excuse me, the radius of the soft link itself, diameter. The diameter of the soft links is larger than the metal links, and so that when I make one loop, going from a single loop to a double loop, it's a larger jump. And so on and so forth when I go to the other loops as well. It's just larger jump, so it's harder to fine-tune it. So I always propose people change them out, and that way we can get it, you know, fine-tuned and everything down to gnat's ass. Much easier, much better overall. And the weight savings going to soft links versus metal links is not that much to difference. And the more of a concern from the safety aspect is having the glider trimmed and being able to trim it multiple times, just like we do oil changes on cars. Something you got to keep up on. And the way to do that is with metal links, the most easiest way. Okay, so again, the three areas that we are adjusting or comparing are line groups 1 with each other, line groups, which are all the yellow, line groups 2 with each other, and line groups 3 with each other. And what I mean by each other in that aspect is I compare everything with the B row. So my B1, my B2, and my B3 line groups are going to be compared to the affiliated A and C rows and D rows. So, for example, I'll compare the results of the measurements of B1 with A1, or a better wording would be A1 compared to B1, and it should be no more than plus or minus 4 millimeters. And then the C1 with B1, again, no more than plus or minus 4 millimeters, and then D1 with B1. So we're comparing everything with B1. And so what that means is the B row has to be zeroed out first. So I will always adjust the B row first to make sure that's closest to the zero plane, which is zero plane, or zero is the factory spec, and I get it as closest to that, and then I compare there afterwards the line groups in accordance to. So in the second line group, I do the same thing as I did with the first line group. So I'm comparing A2 to B2, and then I'm comparing C2 to B2, and then D2 to B2, and then A3 to B3, C3 to B3, and D3 to B3. And those differences can be, like I was mentioning earlier, no more than plus or minus 4 millimeters. And so let's go over how that will look on your charts, for example. Here's a chart of half the glider. This is showing the left side of the glider, but really we're looking at the left side of the glider here. And the results here, if you look at cross-references, the A, B, C, D rows and the 1, 2, 3, 4 line groups, or the 4 I got as S for stabilo. So where A and 1 cross are going to be the results for line group A1. And so that's going to be the lines at this main line. So if you look here, you've got each row can have up to 3 lines. And you'll see that commonly on the links, A1, A2, A3, and then B1, B2, 3, and then C1, C2, C3, and then D1, D2, and T3. In this case, this glider, the D's and the C's are combined so that, instead of 3 and 3 C's and 3 D's, we actually have 6 that the C1 is affecting, as well as C2 is affecting 6, whereas C3 is affecting a lot more. And the same thing over here. And so this glider's scenario is 336, 336, and then 338. It's a little bit different here, but so every make and model is different on the layouts, and so the results have to be accumulated accordingly. So if I look at a glider, like let's go to another make and model like this, it's a lot simpler, but we got the line groups for the yellow, which is line group 1, the blues are line group 2, and greens are line group 3. We'll see that it's 2, 2, 2, and then the B row is 2, 2, 2, and the C row is 2. Are actually 4, 4, 4 because we're combining C's and D's. They're all linked together to the same main line, so it's 4, 4, 4. And no matter what make and model you go to, you're going to find a whole different scenario. And so here we got another glider that's going 4, 4, 6. The B's are 4, 4. It's only using 2 line groups. The third line group's actually stuck under the C row. So we're having here, we've got 4, 4, 6, but then we're combining the D's, so it makes it 8, 8, 6. So it's you're going to find that these groupings need to be tallied up accordingly on your chart. So you have to adjust your charts accordingly, and it's time consuming to do that, but it's the only way you can evaluate your results most appropriately when you're doing B-row pitch balancing. And so, for example, if you take line group 1A, A1, over in this square right here where the top of my cursor is pointing, where it says minus 0.5, that's going to be the average of the results of, if you look here on the canopy lines for the line group A1, A2, A3, A4, those lines, whatever those measurements are, the average of them is going to be in that cell. And then in line group A2, it's going to be lines, at the canopy lines, A5, A6, A7, A8, going to be averaged, and they're going to put that result's going to be here, which is minus 2.0, and then so on and so forth. And so what you're doing is we always compare the line groups vertically. So if you look over here in this chart, I'm comparing, like I was mentioning earlier, comparing the line groups 1 with each other, line groups 2s with each other, and line groups 3 with each other. So look at all the yellows. Of course, this scans this half the glider, but really it's just showing you that if it, if this was on this side of the glider, it'd be too convoluted, so they just broke it down over here. But these B's would be B1, B2, B3, B4, like that. These would actually be flip-flop over here. And you would be comparing the results of these 4 with these 4. So I'm comparing the results of A1, which is those 4 lines tallied up and averaged, with these 4 lines. And that's going to be also done simplified here with the chart here, because all the results are here accordingly. So line group A1 compared to B1, and then line group C1 compared to B1, and line group D1 compared to B1. And that's what I do, and it could be a little more than plus or minus 4 millimeters, and then I'll adjust accordingly. So let's get a better look at a glider. Let's see what this glider looked like before. This is after I did my measurements. This is before. And so this glider here, the results were here before when I originally measured it, and this is what it looks after I did my adjustments, and this is what the mounting loops were before, and this is what the mounting loops were done after. The bold ones are the ones that I changed in order to get these results. And if you look at this glider, the results here, there's nothing greater than 10 millimeters. Plus or minus 10 millimeters, this glider would be passing. Yeah, we got 10.8, 10.5, but the reality, it's meeting the plus or minus 10 millimeters from a line length perspective. It's not far off, just tenths. But the issue is not that issue is not anything that I focus on. What I focus on is the B-row pitch balancing. So the numbers that come up in red are showing that's what's beyond plus or minus 4 millimeters from the B-row. So if you look at the B-row here, the results, I can compare that now vertically. We always compare line groups 1 with each other, and line groups 2 with each other, and line groups 3 with each other. And we do that on both sides of the glider. If you look here, B1 on the right side answer is 2 plus 2.3 are the results. And I compare that with line group A1. Well, the difference is greater than 4 millimeters, so that means I have to make an adjustment. So what do I have there at line group A1? I have a single loop, so I need to change that. But because it's red doesn't mean I need to change that. It just means the difference is off. So what do I need to change here? Well, I don't want to change something that's already minus. I need to change this one that's plus 2. So I'm going to take that plus 2 and actually put a double loop there. Or it's already a double loop, so what do? I make it an AS, an anchor stitch, which is a girth hitch. So it's a little bit more shorter than the double loop. So I'll do that for that one, and then I'll make that a little bit less, so it'll be within 4 millimeters of that one. And so we'll do that. And then over here, C1 comparing it to B is larger, so I'll make that a little bit more too. So it's already at a double loop, so I'm going to make that an anchor stitch plus to bring that down. And it's connected with the D row, so when I make that change here at C1, it's actually going to affect both C1 and D1, and they're pretty much in the same ballpark, so they'll change accordingly. And that's what I do for each and every one of the line groups. So I'm going to compare. And so over here on line group 2, A2's fine, B2's fine, the comparison of those. Now I compare C2 with B2, and it's off, so I need to add a double loop here for the C, but it's already double loop, so I make it a little more, and I made it a anchor stitch plus in order to bring that into sync. And then I did the same thing over here on the C row. That was already a double loop, so I made that an anchor stitch plus. And then once I did those things, I remeasure, and then you can see everything here. There's no red numbers, so I know automatically that everything's within plus or minus 5 millimeters. And so that's how we do it, and we do the same thing on the left side now. And once you do that, the result's going to be plus or minus 5 millimeters now, once you've compared everything in the pitch balance with the B-row. So you don't have to worry about whether or not you're plus or minus 10 millimeters, because a lot of times I'll get gliders where the differences are beyond 10. Things are up to 20, plus 20 millimeters, plus 25 millimeters. And so when I just focus on the B-row pitch balancing, well, first thing I do is I try to get the B-row as closest to the zero plane, and once I've done that, then I'll I'll make the adjustments on the A row and C rows, or C/D rows, in order to get in sync or within plus of or minus of 4 millimeters from the B row. That it'll automatically get everything less than plus or minus 10 millimeter, and it'll actually bring it more closely to plus or minus 5 millimeters as with the end result. So it'll be pitch balanced and line length balanced automatically. So, you know, here in this case, the glider was progressively getting higher, was in the pitch speed condition. The glider was profile. Here's the profile picture here. It was sloped down. So the yellow line is perfect. That's exactly factory spec. We call the zero plane. You know, to pass the glider, when you get a glider that's brand new, it's going to be within these two red lines. So the top red line is plus 10 millimeters, and the bottom red line is minus 10 millimeters. And so long as everything's in between those two, it's going to be passing. But then you also compare it between the rows, like I was telling you earlier. So you can have a glider that's passing between the red lines here, meaning in between plus 10 millimeters and minus 10 millimeters, but it can be very far off in regards to being in the pitch balancing realm between the rows, and that's what matters the most. So here's the glider before. It was actually passing. It was just a hair off right there, but now we look at it. Now we're close to plus or minus 5 millimeters. I mean, I think we got one a little above 5.5, but you know, but see how tight the tolerances end up being when you focus on pitch balancing as far as line length goes. Everything's a lot closer. So let's take another example. Which one are we on? We're on the Swift. Let's go to the beat here. So once I've done this glider, let's go over and look on when I did the balancing on this one. This was another glider where they were lucky enough to be within plus or minus 10 millimeters. I actually had one line that was off. It was at plus 13 millimeters. So all I needed to do, right above my cursor there, where it says plus 13.3, was actually make an adjustment there, and then it would have been fine in realms of line lengths. But you can see all the red numbers. That means those are all off for the B row. So I got the B row close to zero. There's nothing here above. Well, we actually the B4, which is isolated, will take care of itself. And so we're seeing the stabilo on the right side that I had to put a double loop to bring that down so that it wasn't so far off from the other side, which is minus 2.1 millimeters. But in comparison to rows now, we got 7.7 millimeters difference between A1 and B1, so we got to make adjustment there. So I needed a double loop there to correct that one. And over here we got 10.7 millimeters difference, so I put a double loop there for the line group A2 between A1 and A2 and B2. Now C2 and B2, we got look at that, we got 14 millimeters difference. So I'm going to do an anchor stitch there, so you can see I documented that, and it's also taking care of D, because what adjustment I make on the mullion on the C, they branch out to the D rows as well. So these are combined, but I have the results individually so I can see the differences in case I have some isolated things to do and minute adjustments of a single line here and there. But I like to see them broken down. But I know they're combined, but I know these numbers are close enough to each other that they'll still be okay with me just making the adjustment at the mullion loop. And then there's no adjustments needed here in the third line group. There's no red. I'll do the same thing on this line group 1 on the left side, line group 2 on the left side. It needs some adjustment as well. As you can see, here's where the adjustments I made. So it's not always the red numbers that need adjusting. It's maybe with the affiliated ones that are bringing it off. In this case, it is the actual red numbers that I had to double loop there. You need a double loop there on A1, like so, and then a double loop at C1 because they were so far from B. But if you look over here, it's just the A1 wasn't red. It was within 4 millimeters of the B row, but to me it was just a little tad high, so I went ahead and put a double loop there, bring it down a little bit closer, and then the 10 millimeter here, of course, definitely needed it. It was 8 millimeters away from the B row, so I put a double loop there, and then of course it'll automatically take care of the D that was connected to it. And then here's my results afterwards. Now I got no more red numbers. I know automatically that everything's within plus or minus 4 millimeters of the B row. And if you look at the numbers here, what's the largest positive number I have? Plus 2.3. This is my highest plus number, and my highest lowest negative number is minus 3.3. So actually, here's a minus 3.5. So the range is here we go, plus 2.7 to minus 3.5, and that's, I mean, that's tight tolerances. And that was just because I focused on the B row pitch balancing. Look at what the numbers end up being. It's just incredible how much of a perfect trim that is attained. So here's before. You can see we got above the red line there, so it's out of whack. And then see up and down, and we want things to be more horizontal and straight like the yellow line is. You can't get it perfect there, but you want to get it as close as possible. Then after we did our adjustments and measurement, look where we're at now. Everything's a lot closer. You know, like I was saying, it's plus or minus 3 millimeters here, and look at her. I mean, hunky-dory. And this is broken down the line groups. And then this is a 3D version of seeing them all. This is after, and then this is before. You know, the taller the columns, this is the worst, you know, it's the worst trim. The smaller the columns, the better the trim. The closer they are to the zero plane, the better the trim. So a lot of people are out there flying like this and a lot higher columns and then being all over the place. And we want them like this. And so this is what we do here at Paraglider Service USA. Talk to you all later. Bye.